The pathway out of poverty is keeping the commandments of God, including tithing. The church doesn't need their money, but those people need the blessings that come from obeying God's commandments.
Can you talk about the decision to really emphasize Church of Latter-day Saints as opposed to calling yourself Mormon or LDS Church?
To say we will no longer use a nickname pejoratively attached to our church by our enemies anymore. And we're inviting other people to call us what we are called, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The name of the church was revealed. We didn't have a task force and test it with focus groups. It was revealed by the head of the church, who is Jesus Christ.
You had mentioned Africa as one of the major places where you're seeing growth. What are some of the reasons that, say, Africa is growing so much now?
When you go to visit with a congregation there and you recite a verse from the Bible, everyone in the congregation, without looking at a text, can recite it with you. There's a very strong Christian tradition.
What are some of the advantages of so much business acumen at the church's highest levels?
So I do not take my academic background and experience and impose that on the church. I let the doctrine of Christ influence how I see things. So certainly there are practical advantages in knowing about how organizations run and budgeting and so forth. But I view that really as secondary. I try to view what we do and the mission we fulfill through the lens of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
With over $100 billion in funds and assets, the LDS Church has more capability than any other church in the country to help eliminate poverty. What more could the church do in terms of humanitarian efforts here?
If you take a look at the stock market, I don't think it's $100 billion anymore. We believe that there are, you can read in the Old Testament, about 7 years of famine and 7 years of plenty. It's a good idea to prepare. These undertakings that I've described are resource consuming, not resource generating. And a lot of people depend on the resource that we provide. And if things are different in the future than they are now, we think it's provident and wise to prepare to maintain that kind of support in an uncertain economic environment.
Can you envision a day when LGBTQ church members can marry and be sealed within the church?
We believe that marriage between a man and a woman is ordained of God, and that the family is central to the Father's plan for the eternal destiny and happiness of his children.
You mentioned that women lead within the church in many ways. Will there ever be a female president of the Church of Latter-day Saints?
We follow the pattern of the ancient church. We believe that a man must be called of God by prophecy and by the laying on of hands, by those who are in authority to preach the gospel and administer in the ordinances thereof. The pattern anciently was that the apostles were men.
How would a trans person be treated if they had already completed their transition before exploring membership in the church?
We welcome all and strive to love them. Now, I use the word strive because we don't do that perfectly.
Given the significant financial strain that tithing is for those in war or in abject poverty, is there any discussion within the church about not requiring that for people in those situations?
The pathway out of poverty is keeping the commandments of God, including tithing. The church doesn't need their money, but those people need the blessings that come from obeying God's commandments.
Where do you see reporters misreporting?
You always lose something in the generality of a stereotype. And so, Latter-day Saints are like this, or they all do this. I think there needs to be a little more precision. There needs to be a little more listening and asking. We would never ask for the right to be able to review it, but I think they could do a little more than just take somebody else's secondhand view, push it along. There's a little homework that ought to be done to find out what's really taking place.
Reporters need to engage more directly with you like we are doing today.
Amen.
All right. Thank you so much for
you,
joining
Jen.
us today.